Okay, so welcome in this on Node.js episode 2 of our class. And in our episode 1 or video 1 or tutorial 1, we were able to introduce Node.js, and we were able to understand what Node.js is all about. Even some of the use cases, how Node.js works, we were able to go through on the first video. And we ended that video, that tutorial on, how to create just a simple server. But today we are going to look at these other aspects of Node.js. So one is to create a server, which we already did, but we still have something to work on. Another one is how to read files using Node.js, or how does Node.js read files? How does Node.js write files? How does Node.js create directories, or how do you create directories in Node.js, delete files, or even directories? So this is actually what we had yesterday. We were able to have index.html file, which were, just an HTML file. And then here we are having server.js. So if you look at this, for you to come up with the server, because by default, Node.js has its own server and its own port. So if you are to execute your code in a localhost or just within your computer, you can actually use this IP address 127.0.0.1 or a port number 3000. And when you go live, for example, if I click go live, then automatically it's going to give us a default port. So the default port is 5501. And for this, it means that if I have a content here, then automatically this content should be displayed, because by default it's using port 5501. But what happens in a scenario where you want to change your server, you want to change the listening port to a different port. So in this scenario, you have to define your criteria or your server criteria or details here. And you can see that there's two important things. One, you have to go with the IP address, and then you have to define the port. So for this scenario, we were having 3001, and I need to have or to import this file system or this module called HTTP. And we have the IP address, and then we have the port number. So this was actually the defining point. And then you have to test the server. So this is the code we went through. So you are to create the server using the create server function, and the server has to take two parameters, the request and the response. So here we're only testing that we want to get the status code for any response. So what happens is we have res.status code equals to 200. And then we have res, that is the response.set header, content type, text to plain, res.end. So these are the response. So this was just a way of testing. So the status code 200, means that it's okay. If everything is okay, or if my server is okay, then it will go through. And for the set header, what's going to be displayed, it should be the content. What type of the content? It should be text or plain, because it's just the plain text. So, and then how do I want my server to be read? So server is running at HTTP, then I need to mention the host name plus the port number, which I'm mentioning here. So for you to execute this, you have to go to terminal, new terminal, and then do node just do node and then server .js and press enter. So it seems that we have an issue. Let me just dispose this. So here, let me give it, okay, here, let me give it like 3,000. 3,000, and then let me run it again. So just do node server. Yeah. So now it's running at 3,000. So if I run at 3,000 or execute this IP address, I mean this link, then automatically it's going to give me beautiful country. So if I go back to this page and change that to 3,000 and press enter, now you can see we have beautiful country. Now, remember, this beautiful country as a text, it's actually a plain text, and it is running within the server.js file. But you see, when you are executing your code or just doing an application, whether it's a web design, you see, most of the codes you'll be writing under the index.html or the index.php. So for our case, what is already under, for example, if I type H1 or just H1 and then do booking like that, and then terminate my server again and then run. This time around, if I do node, server, can be server alone or server.js, you can see that it's giving us, okay, what's happening here again? Okay, the address already in use. Okay, it seems that the address is already in use. So let me just do like that. So do the running terminal, and then I'll do node server, node server, press enter. So 3,000. Now this time around, if I go to 3,000, if I go to 3,000 again and press enter, I'm still getting the beautiful country. I'm still getting the beautiful country. If I change this to, let's say, policeman, if I go to my website, you see I'm getting still beautiful country. But the only way, or the only, once you make a change on the server or on the server part, you need to do what? You need to restart the server and then go to terminal. So you repeat again node server. And this time round, if you go there and press enter, then that is the only time you'll see that change. But you see, there is something to be understood here, that one, most of the time you'll be interacting with index.html, I mean .html files or .php files. So you want to run or you want to execute what it's already here. For example, we have booking. You want to execute this part with your new server, which is Akeleta 3000. So how can we do this? So from this perspective, we need to restructure. We need to restructure this part. We need to restructure this part. So what I'm going to do before we get rid of this part, I want to restructure it again. So I'll just do const. I will have the same thing up there equals to http dot create server into bracket. I need to have the function into bracket. What are some of the two parameters? Request and response. Request and respond. From here, you have to open with the curly brace. And then here we need now to make some changes. Instead of the status code, we want to do some write-ups. We want the system to write our request on the browser. So what will be respond? So we will have what we call the write head. Write head into bracket. So instead of the status code, we will have the write head and then comma, and then we will have the content. So I can copy this content here. I can copy this content here. So I can copy this content So let me just capture this content like that. So content type equals to text plain. Now, remember our file is being executed as, I mean, the file system, the file extension is .html. So instead of plain, we will have what? We will have HTML. We will have HTML. And this time round, in between here, I'm going to have the full colon. So the content type, then full colon text HTML. From here, I want to capture, there's what you call a file system. So we have a file system called FS. So we want to make sure that we import the file system so that we can use just the same way we have what? The HTTP. So I will come here, I will come here and do const. So I'll create a variable called FS. And then here I'll just do require into bracket. I will do FS. I will do FS. I will do FS. So this means that we have const FS equals to require FS. So it means that now the system will actually import or will require this particular file system or that particular module. So we'll come here and implement the file system. So we'll just do the FS dot. Then remember, we need to read the what? Read the file. So the system has to read the file. Which file to be exact? It is index.html, index.html, and then through the function. So when reading this file, there are two outcomes. It's either the error, there will be an error, or there will be a data. So we need to make sure that these two are well captured. So if there will be an error, what will happen? If there will be an error, then the response should be given as this. So we have the right head, but this time round we have 404. So this is the error code. 404 is the error code. The 200 is, of course, the status code for OK. If everything is OK, 404 is the status code for any error encountered. Another one is, it should, once it encounters the error, it should write that particular error. So we should get this error like error, let's say file not found. Let's talk of file not found. File not found. Now, what happens if the error is not there? If the error will not be there, then we have, this means that we need to do what? Right? Then into bracket, we have that. And then we should come and get the response, like this is the end part. The end part comes there. So this is, so this part will be there. And the other part will be there. So the only thing we are not, we are altering is this part. So what I will do is I will just comment this, and we want now to try our server. Remember, this server is supposed to read any content from index.html. So if I come here and do p, let's do p, then do, let's see, p lorem, like that. We want to have this information. So I've just generated random data. So now we will have like that. We'll have like that. And then this one should come at the end. Should come at the end. So we have this. Yeah. So because a user or you will be interacting a lot with either these particular files, you will not be writing most of your codes under the server, but we are directing the server that let this not use like the normal server when you click go live, but you need to run. You want to just check or view the contents of the index.html file or .html file from this new server. So remember the server code is 3000. So what I will do for us to test our new server, I'll go to new terminal and then I'll do node server and then press enter. So this time around, I'll still go with the 3000. With the 3000, we want to make sure that we're able to view the contents of this particular file. So I'll come here, the 3000, press enter, and now you can see that you have the booking, and then you have this information. So from testing the server to now making use of the server, this is how you do. This is exactly what you want this to do. So I hope that is well understood. Now, from this point, I want to create another file here. And then let's talk about test.js. Test.js. Now, in test.js, I want us to learn about these three things. Number one is, how does Node.js read the file? So we have reading file. We have like writing file, which is very important. We have creating directories. And then here is deleting either a file or a directory. So if I know that when you talk about directory, I mean a file, it can take both the directory and just a .txt file. But here I'm just using file as a txt. So we will start with the first one. So remember, because I'll be using I'll be executing my code in a browser. So this means that I need to have const, let's say HTTP equals to, let me call it require, and then HTTP. Number two, I'll go to fs equals to require fs, just like that. So we have const HTTP equals to require HTTP, const fs equals to require fs. So these are the file system is module. So we want to make sure that we understand. So we are going to start with the reading. How does, and if you look at it, for example, if you look at it, we want to make sure that our server, you see, our server itself is able to be executed, because this time round, we are using a different server, and this server is called test. So I'll go to run, like if I do new terminal, I need to execute like node test. You see, nothing is there. So it means that it is blank. It's not yet a server, because for a server to be called a server, you must assign all these values. It must have like an IP address. It must have like the port. But let's just visit some of these important aspects, because this actually makes up the entire, for you to understand Node.js in a bigger picture. So we want to see how Node.js reads files. So first we need the fs, or even let me get rid of this, because there's no need for us even to have this one. But what we are interested at is actually this part, is actually the second one. Let me even get rid of this, because I just want us to see how to execute some files here. So we need to have this file system. And first of all, for me to use the file system in terms of reading a file, I need to use the fs.read file. read file. Now here, in our project here, I want to create a directory. Let me create a directory. Let's call the directory continent. That is the directory. Now, inside this directory, I want to create a file. Let me call it document.txt. And then under document.txt, I want to have something like this. It's my first time learning Node.js. It's my first time learning Node.js. So you find that this is just a file. This is just a file. And document.txt is under continent. It's under continent. If you click on document.txt, you see it's having this text. It's my first time learning Node.js. So we want to see how does the Node.js read this particular file, because we want to see the contents of this file down here whenever we execute the server. So we have this fs.read file, and then we do into bracket, and then with double quotations, then dot. You have to start with the dot / what is the name of the directory? The name of the directory is called continent. And then followed by the name of the file, document.txt. From there are two options. There are two things there that are involved. One, it's either there will be an error. So you can have, let's use like the function. We can have the error or the actual data. It's either we experience an error while the system is trying to read the file, or we get the exact data. From there, I'm going to give a redirection like that, and then open like that. So from this point, we want to capture the error. So I'll just do, in case there's an error, because for any system to be called a system, handling exceptions or handling errors is the most important thing. So just do console.log into error. Then come down here, just do else, console .log into bracket data. So I need to do like that. So here we can see that probably we have an error. Let me see if I remove this function. Yeah, so there's no need for me to put the function. So you see, this is actually a code, or it is actually a Node.js way of reading files. So we already have a file and a directory called continent, and we have document.txt. So now I want to execute my code. So I'll just come back here again and do node test, press enter. Now you can see that we have a lot of information. Now this is what we call like the buffer codes. It's actually reading the text in binary format. But now for me to convert, remember there is no error so far. So the only thing is that the code has been executed successfully, but the problem is that it's being read in binary format. So we want to convert this text into strings. So we will have something like, after the data, just put this dot, then do to string, and then do like that. So you are converting into string so that you can have a more readable way. So this time round, if I repeat it and press enter, this time round, you can see that we are having this. It's my first time learning Node.js. So this is actually a simple code. It is just a simple code on how how.js reads a file. Now, from this point, we want to come again on how does Node.js write a file. So these are just but very simple techniques you need to know. So writing, remember for reading files, we're using what? Read file. For writing files, we will still use the fs dot write file. Write file. So write file means what? Probably we want to add something on the file. Especially we want to write something on that particular file. And we will see whether it will overwrite or not. So I'll come here to fs.write file. And remember, we have document.txt. Or let me create another file. So I'll just create it and then call it, let's say document2.txt. So document2 is blank. Document2 is blank. So I want us to write something there. So we'll come here and talk about dot/. Now the file is in a directory called continent. What is the file name? Document2.txt, and then jump like that. Then what is the text? Let's say I am a new student. I am a new student. Then from there follows the what? Probably if there's an error, it will be a data. The same scenario, just to do like the way we did on this. And you can still do the same. In case there's an error, you capture. But for this one, I can just go direct and talk of console.log into bracket. Let's say file. We want now to capture the message. File was written successfully. File was written successfully. The file was written successfully. The file was written successfully. fs.write file. So the file was written successfully. So this time round, I don't know. Let me execute myself and see. So I'll just come and do node. First of all, let me do cls. Since we have one for reading a file and the other one for writing a file, since they are going through different files, I can do node and then test, node test. Now you can see that one, it has displayed the content. It's my first time learning Node.js, which was the initial one for reading file. And the second one is file was written successfully, which is actually the second one. But how can we prove this? If I go to document2 and click, now you can see that I am a new student. I am a new student. So this means that the file has been written successfully. It means that the file has been written successfully. Now, the third part is about creating directories. Manually, I was able to create a directory. You see, like just to create, click on the icons and the directories were created automatically. But this scenario, I want to just create a directory. So how do I go about this? Now, if you've gone through Linux, probably you've seen mkdir for make directory. So this is make directory, and it's one command that you can use to create a directory. So I'll just use fs.mkdir into bracket. So where are we creating our directories? In the same location. Probably we can talk of, we want to create a directory inside continent. So I'll just come again and do /continent. Now, if I don't want to create inside a continent, I can end up creating a directory just directly. Let's talk about Africa. So I need another directory inside my project folder. So the directory is called Africa. And then we might encounter an error. We might encounter an error. So then you redirect it, and then you want to capture the message. So there are two options here again. So if there's an error, that is error, just come like that to do what? Console. Console.log into bracket, we have error. And then come here, else. What happens if it is successfully created? We can talk of console.log into bracket, console.log into bracket. Then we have this, like, let's say folder created successfully. Yeah, just a message. So what folder are we creating? We're creating a folder called Africa. We're creating a folder called Africa. So let us execute our code like that, node test, press enter. Now you can see that, yes, folder created successfully. And if you look at this, we have a folder called what? There's a folder called Africa, a folder called Africa. So that is how to create a what? That is how Node.js creates a directory. Let's come finally on deleting a file. On deleting a file, again, we are using the fs, and we can talk of rm, remove dir for directory into bracket. So which directory? We can choose to delete a directory, or we can choose to delete a file. Let's assume that we want to delete a directory called Africa, since it is here. So since it is there, I will do like that, /, and then we have Africa. So the same scenario, it's only that we are changing some few concepts. So we need the same error, and then like that. So if there is an error while deleting, then we need to talk about the console.log into bracket error, or else come back here. Okay, sorry. Like that. Console.log, and then we can talk of folder deleted. Let's say successfully. Folder deleted successfully. Folder deleted successfully. Folder deleted successfully. So remember, there was a creation of this folder. So this, if I execute the code here, if I execute the code, automatically there will be, this folder is going to be created. So I don't want this folder to be created. But I want to delete. I want this to be deleted, this Africa. So I will come here and do node test. Now you can see that it has disappeared. The directory Africa has disappeared. So this means that we have this message: folder deleted successfully, file was written successfully. It's my first time learning Node.js. So if I comment on this and open this and change this directory, let's say I want to create another directory inside Africa. Let me call it Africa1. And then do like that, come node test. So there's an error because we are supposed to have one at a time. So let me talk about Tanzania. So Tanzania is a folder. So here it means now that we need to run the terminal. Let's say node test. Yes, so folder created. Now you can see we have Tanzania here. We have Tanzania there. So from this scenario, you can now see that the importance of Node.js in terms of creating a file, creating directories, deleting a file directories, reading a file, writing a file, creating your own server, or even using the default port number. It's important for you to understand some of these concepts. It's important for you to have some of these concepts. Yeah. So in the next tutorial or the next class, we're going to have more in-depth because this forms parts of the basics and part of the data structure, or part of the most important features or characteristics in Node. So see you on the next video.